Hey, what's up, Brady? Welcome to the live stream, or if you're watching this at a later date, it'll be known as Keith Condensed. But feel free to join me on the actual live stream. My live stream is 6 days a week. And right now, the schedule's kind of flip-flopping around as we still try to get it concrete. However, today, what I wanted to talk about was a question that I received from a subscriber whose name is Christopher Michael, and he asked, does it make sense if I hold an ETF that has Apple in it and I hold Apple's individual stock as well? And I think that, first of all, these videos are not meant for financial advice. They're only for educational purposes. So if I start talking about a stock in a good light, that doesn't constitute to go buy and sell something else, or that doesn't mean that it's going to go up exponentially or anything like that. I'm just basically sharing my opinion here, and I try to be as honest as I can. With Apple, I don't hold any stock in them on Robinhood, and I don't hold any of them like specifically. I hold them through ETFs because I'm exposed to like the S&P 500 and other ETFs as well that it would expose me to Apple also. However, I like his question because I think it's one of those things that most people don't really consider when they're buying an ETF, that, hey, maybe this entire holding here is really exposed to Apple because it is like the top market cap company. So the percentage of your exposure to Apple, maybe in an S&P 500 fund, or maybe even just like in a target fund, might be like the upwards of like 6 to 7 to 8%. Well, that's almost like literally that's almost a tenth of your entire portfolio. So if you only held that one ETF, that could be potentially 8% of your entire portfolio. And then if you expose yourself even more to Apple by buying some singles or just buying Apple, then you would be exposing yourself even more. Like, is it smart? I don't really see a problem with it. The only thing that comes with that is that if Apple fluctuates because of the volatility or whatever, if it goes up, then yeah, you'll capture a greater return. However, if it drops in the same breath, you'll have your account drop a lot more than it would be if you're only exposed into that ETF. So you're playing risk versus reward in that instance. For me personally, what I do is I expose myself to ETFs. A lot of the ETFs that I hold on Robinhood are not the same single stocks that I hold on Robinhood. Actually, I think that hands down, there's probably none that I hold on Robinhood as far as ETFs that I'm exposed to as far as single stocks. And the reason for that is because I don't want my ETFs and stuff to move all at the same velocity every single day. I want, like, maybe, for instance, like on Robinhood, there's some cannabis stocks that I'm exposed to. Well, those don't move always with the S&P 500. There's some days that those stocks are green. Well, no pun intended, but those are green, and the S&P 500 ETFs or the ETFs that I'm holding that expose me to those big market cap companies are down. And for me, that's great because sometimes when those S&P 500 companies flip back the other way and go green and rise higher, no, I'm just kidding. the cannabis stocks will also increase just because of the market trend. So I do expose myself to different stocks than I hold in as far as ETFs. Case with like Stash or Acorns, I don't hold any single stocks on either of those, so I'm only exposing myself to ETFs right now. That's because on Acorns I have to. I don't have a choice. And on Stash, I made the choice to only expose myself to ETFs right now. So I guess really what it comes down to is how much risk do you want to take with Apple? And I think that that's something that you need to take into consideration. So for instance, even if it was only, you were expose yourself maybe 20% into that ETF and Apple made up like say 10% of it, you're going to be exposing yourself basically 2% into Apple already. And maybe you don't want to be exposed more than 10% into a certain single stock or something like that. Maybe you're trying to run like 10 stock portfolio or something like that, and so you're like, well, I don't want to be overexposed, and so at 10%, that's just a made up number that I just threw out of thin air. So you could go higher or lower. That's just a made up number. You're like, I don't want to go above 10% exposed into any individual stock. Well, then you got to take into consideration your exposure in that ETF as well, because obviously if you expose yourself 8% into Apple by buying the stock, and then you have your 2% in that ETF. Well, add them together, you get 10%. So just something to consider when looking at buying the single stock that's also held in that ETF as well. Anyways, guys, I would appreciate your thoughts if you would let me know in the comments down below what you do and how you approach that, buying an ETF and then also buying a single stock that's within that ETF. Do you take that into consideration as far as risk level? And how has that worked out in the past? I would love to hear your thoughts, love to hear your opinions. Feel free to let me know down below. And as always, don't forget to check out the live stream. I do give away a ½ ounce of silver every single Saturday to the person who has the most K coin. Feel free to check that out and see exactly what K coin is and how to win silver. But until next time, guys, it's been real. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it.